Have you ever felt that moment when something you thought you understood completely suddenly reveals itself to be something entirely different? That's the experience millions of film enthusiasts had when a hidden detail in one of Hollywood's most beloved films came to light. For nearly 2 decades, audiences watched a particular scene in a legendary movie without realizing that the production crew was watching right back at them, literally captured in plain sight within the frame itself. Today, we're going to explore one of cinema's most fascinating oversights, not because it's dramatic or disruptive, but because it tells us something profound about how we perceive reality when it's presented to us through a screen. The beauty of filmmaking lies in its ability to create a believable world that feels complete and separate from our own. When you sit in a theater or on your couch, the goal is for you to forget that there's a camera, a crew, lighting equipment, and countless technical decisions happening behind the scenes. The filmmaker's job is to guide your attention so skillfully that you never stop to question what you're seeing. You don't think about the angle of the shot, the reason why the camera is positioned a certain way, or what might be happening just beyond the edge of the frame. You simply accept what's presented to you as real within the context of the story. This suspension of disbelief is so powerful that it can overcome minor imperfections, technical glitches, or accidental exposure of the machinery that creates the illusion. But what happens when that machinery becomes visible? What happens when the hidden infrastructure of filmmaking suddenly intrudes into the narrative space it was supposed to remain separate from? The answer is complicated. Some viewers feel disappointed, believing that a flaw in execution has compromised their experience. Others find it oddly reassuring, a reminder that even the most meticulously crafted productions are ultimately created by humans with human limitations. And still others become fascinated by the moment itself, treating it as a puzzle to understand how such an obvious mistake managed to survive the entire production and post-production process without being corrected. One of Hollywood's most iconic films became the center of this exact phenomenon. A scene that has been watched countless millions of times across multiple decades suddenly took on a new dimension when a dedicated fan with a keen eye decided to scrutinize a detail that most viewers had walked right past. What he discovered wasn't hidden in the shadows or tucked away in a corner of the frame. It was right there, visible to anyone who knew exactly where to look. The question that naturally followed was simple but profound. How did nobody catch this before? The answer to that question requires us to understand not just the technical aspects of filmmaking, but also the psychology of how we watch films, the pressures under which productions operate, and the ways that technology has fundamentally changed our relationship with the media we consume. When we examine this blooper in detail, we're not just looking at a single mistake. We're examining the entire complex system of production decisions, human attention, technical capabilities, and the eternal tension between perfection and practicality that defines professional filmmaking. The scene in question involves a character transitioning from one social space to another. This is a narrative turning point, a moment where the story takes a significant step forward in terms of character development and plot progression. The filmmakers invested considerable effort in making this moment feel natural and emotionally resonant. The lighting was carefully balanced to set a particular mood. The set design was crafted to convey the contrast between two different worlds. The actor's performance was refined through multiple takes until it achieved the exact emotional register that the director wanted. All of these elements were orchestrated to create a seamless experience for the audience, one where they would focus entirely on the character's journey and emotional state. And that choreography of attention is exactly why the mistake works so well. Because your eyes and your brain were being directed to look in one specific place, something else was happening right in front of you that you never noticed. There was a reflective surface in the scene, a glass element that served as a functional part of the set. Like all reflective surfaces, it had the potential to act like a mirror, capturing whatever was positioned in front of it. In this case, what was captured in that reflection was something that absolutely should not have been visible: a crew member with filming equipment, standing in position to capture the shot. For years, millions of viewers watched this scene without ever noticing this reflection. They saw the character's movements, they absorbed the emotional weight of the moment, they followed the narrative progression, and they moved on to the next scene without ever becoming aware that they were also looking at evidence of the production process itself. The oversight wasn't discovered through official channels or industry analysis. It came from a fan who took the time to slow down the footage, enhance the image quality, and examine it with the kind of focused attention that most casual viewers simply don't apply to movies. Once this fan pointed out the reflection, the discovery spread rapidly through social media, eventually reaching millions of people who then went back to watch the scene themselves and confirmed that yes, it was absolutely there. Understanding how this mistake made it into the final cut requires examining the production process in detail. When a scene like this is filmed, it's never captured in a single take. The director shoots multiple versions, each with slight variations in timing, camera movement, actor positioning, or other variables. These different takes are then reviewed by the director, cinematographer, and editor. The selection process focuses primarily on performance quality and narrative continuity. Does the actor deliver the emotional beats effectively? Does the pacing feel right? Does this version of the scene advance the story in the way it's supposed to? These are the questions that drive the decision-making process. Technical perfection is important, but it's not the primary consideration when you're selecting between multiple takes of the same scene. If one take captures the perfect emotional moment but contains a minor technical issue, and another take is technically flawless but slightly weak in terms of performance, most production teams will choose the first option. The story and the viewer's emotional experience take priority over background details that might not even be consciously noticed. Additionally, the process of reviewing footage was different in the era when this particular film was made. Editors were working with monitoring systems that didn't provide the same level of detail and resolution that modern screens do. A reflection that appears obvious when you're pausing a high-definition image on a digital platform might have been nearly invisible when viewing the scene at full speed on the equipment available at that time. The complexity of the production process also matters. A major film production involves hundreds of people working across multiple departments. The volume of footage that needs to be reviewed is enormous. Every frame passes through various layers of scrutiny, but no system is perfect. When you're managing thousands of shots and dozens of hours of footage, some small details inevitably slip through the cracks, especially if they don't appear to affect the primary purpose of the shot. There's also a practical economic consideration that goes unspoken in many discussions about filmmaking. Not every mistake is worth fixing. Correcting a reflection like the one in question would have required either reshooting the entire scene or digitally removing or altering the reflection in post-production. Both of these options involve significant time, money, and creative risk. If the oversight was deemed minor enough that general audiences were unlikely to notice it, and if the scene as it was captured was strong in all the important ways, then the rational decision from a production standpoint would be to move forward without correction. This represents a balance between perfectionism and pragmatism, between the ideal and the possible given real-world constraints. When the discovery was finally made public, it sparked a fascinating range of responses. Some viewers were genuinely shocked, struggling to understand how such a visible mistake could exist in a production known for its meticulous attention to detail. For these viewers, the discovery felt like a violation of the trust they'd placed in the filmmakers. They had accepted every frame as intentional and carefully crafted, and the revelation that something this obvious had slipped through damaged that faith. These are the people who, when they watch the scene again, can no longer focus on the character's emotional journey. Their attention is now locked onto the reflection, unable to look away from the evidence of the production process. Other viewers responded with a kind of knowing acceptance. They argued that every film contains errors, that reflections are notoriously difficult to control on practical sets, and that achieving absolute technical perfection across hundreds of shots is nearly impossible. From their perspective, this wasn't a shameful flaw but a natural consequence of the physical realities of filmmaking. These viewers tend to be those who have some knowledge of how films are actually made, and they view the blooper with understanding rather than disappointment. There was also a group of viewers who approached the discovery with genuine curiosity and interest. These are the people who actively look for details like this in films they watch, scanning windows and mirrors and glass surfaces looking for signs of crew members or equipment. For them, this discovery wasn't surprising at all. It was confirmation of something they already expected, that behind every